Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast, the show that brings you weekly advice and news at the beginning of every weekend. Introducing first your co-hosts Mac, Mark, Scott, and Landon. Back again with another Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast, episode 63, coming to you here on Saturday, July 27th. Wherever you are and however you may be listening, we want to thank you for making us a part of your day. On today's show, we've got the AFC East preview. We're talking those Pats, Bills, Jets, and Dolphins. Got the boys with me. We all survived the long and arduous birthday weekend on the lake. We got Landon, Mark, Scott. Boys, how's it going?
Yo, Mackie, I am good. I had a great time celebrating your 30th birthday. I got my ass handed to me at golf.
I wouldn't say that. The guy comes in, no clubs. No clubs, no shoes.
Okay. I'm not making
rentals
excuses
from me. Come on.
But I got to whoop you at Spike Ball and Death Ball.
Yes.
Oh no, we were on the same team on Death Ball.
Murder Ball.
Murder Ball. Yeah, right.
No, it was a lot of fun.
No, we had a good time.
Scott, are you still red? You got like one of the worst sunburns I've ever seen in my life.
I was dominated by the UV index. I will say that.
Oh, that's hot.
Feet are actually what took most of the abuse. I still have like 17 individual cuts on my feet. So the bottom of
those zebra muscles
there is, geez, that is sharp.
It is treacherous. I also have a few. Mark, we missed you, pal. It was a good weekend, but it would have been a little bit better with you there.
Yeah, I missed you guys too. But I still, I'm just living it up here. Having wonderful weather in Thunder Bay here and not working any day ever right now. So that's great. And my brother's on his way in from out of town with his 1-year-old son and his partner. So we're going to have some family times in the next couple of days. And yeah, we're really excited about that. And then just a couple short weeks and I'm going to be going overseas to Europe, my friends.
Nice.
Hey.
That'll be wicked.
Fantastic.
Does that mean we get to do a show or two without you?
If you can call them shows.
Marky, how were those golf tournaments you played in?
They were messy. Yeah. They were they were less focused on the performance and more so on the camaraderie, I guess you could say. And then, the second one I was in all came crashing down with one of my friends and I getting into a physical altercation. And
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
that's that's the worst kind of altercation in my books.
On the golf course?
Well, the round was done.
Oh. So you guys are just in the parking lot, like throwing down?
Yes, actually, that's pretty much the narrative right there.
Shut up. Give us the story on this.
Holy
How did we not open the show with this?
It was okay. So a really close friend of mine had a little too much to drink. I wasn't skint on the amount that I drank as well. And he, for some reason, put his hands around my neck. And so I pushed him back and said,
No.
Don't ever do that sort of thing again. And then he did it again. And I pushed him to the ground again. And as bad as I feel about doing that now, I just called for my ride. She came right away. Bless my girlfriend's soul. And yeah, I talked to him about it today after letting it stew a bit.
I would have buried that guy. Just absolutely fist to the face.
Well, this is one of my best buddies. I wasn't going to be... Yeah. I feel like pushing him was bad enough.
Oh. Yeah. Well, hey, if a guy throws his hands around your neck, like I'm saying green light. Like you have nothing stopping you.
Yeah, I had thrown enough bombs out there on the golf course already, so...
Oh, okay.
Heyo.
All right.
I feel like that story is going to be
speaking
a
of
great segue
bombs,
into our first news segment.
speaking of bombs, Tyreek
Speaking of
Hill.
grabbing people by the throat.
Speaking of horrendous acts.
Well, I guess we're moving on to news. And depending on really what side you take on this whole ordeal, Tyreek Hill has basically received no suspension from the NFL, which is wild. I mean, some people thought he might get up to 8 games, and then it looked like 4 games, and now it's nothing. I mean, what are your take on this?
Oh man, this is tough. So, I mean, we're a fantasy football show. We're not an ethics committee here. We're gonna try to help you win your leagues. It's tough, man. It's tough. I think if he laid a hand on his kid, he should not be in the league anymore. He should be released and out of the league. I think it's tough, but obviously there was no evidence of that fact. Maybe he didn't do it. I guess we assume innocent if not proven guilty. So if he's in the league, he is a valuable asset on your fantasy team. He's a borderline first-round pick.
I feel really, really bad for all of those people that reached for McCole Hardman in their rookie drafts for Dynasty. Oh, wait.
Yeah, Mark.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Yeah, well, I feel bad for those guys who have Melvin
Mark,
Gordon on their team, so.
Yeah. Oh, you mean Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, and Philip Lindsay?
Yes.
Yep.
That's
I feel bad for all that.
That's
hate
my
guys
team.
like that.
Oh, okay. My bad. Hey, how many championships have you won in this league?
Oh man, I've only got 5.
Right.
Way to put verbal hands around his neck.
Melvin Gordon, a report came out today that he has officially said he will not attend training camp. The holdout for Melvin Gordon appears real. If you've been following us on Instagram, you would have noticed that we put up a couple polls about Melvin Gordon, and the consensus among our listeners and followers is that Melvin Gordon is going to be holding out for a long time. I personally don't believe he has the stones to do it, but I think that his holdout will be put to the absolute test because the Chargers are not willing to pay up. How do you guys see this thing shaking out? Is he going to be traded elsewhere, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or is he going to hold out and play the Le'Veon Bell card from 2018?
I think he, like we talked about last episode, I think he is probably just riding such a high, but I think it's a bit egotistical right now for him to hold out like for this young of a guy. I don't think he's proven himself quite enough to push the Chargers organization into a corner where they owe him as much as he's maybe expecting. But any team that has this guy starting on their roster is gonna be benefited by him. So I think it's a pretty tight one, but I honestly think it's a bluff.
Yeah.
So
We
there's
did
been
talk
a
about
little
it last week, but yeah, I mean, he has basically gone ahead and said, well, first part of my plan is to hold out from training camp, and I'm doing it.
There's been more research done into this since the same thing happened last year, but it was a different scenario with Le'Veon Bell, where now Melvin Gordon, if he sits out the whole season, he does not enter free agency.
We got an interesting question off of Twitter, and it's from one of our listeners, and he said, Ricky Wilson, what makes your podcast different from everyone else's out there? What's one specific thing that you feel you do or talk about that's unique when creating the show? I think this is an excellent question. I really, really like it. I've got an answer, but what do you guys think? What makes us unique compared to other fantasy football podcasts? Because there are thousands and thousands of them.
I think this is a great question, and my 2 cents on it really is I think the dynamic amongst the 4 of us is something that cannot be fabricated. I think that we've known each other, some of us our entire lives, We've we've watched football and sports in general together so much that I think that the banter, the back and forth, everything you hear here is very genuine. It's not scripted, and I think it's a really fun way to get a lot of information out there, but still have a good time. I think it's like four best friends hanging out at a bar, giving their best 2 cents and debating. And you can get your ESPN or your pundits wherever you want, but I think we bring a really good time to the information that we truly believe as well.
Absolutely. And I have a full-time job, but I, for lack of a better word, live and breathe football. Whenever I'm listening to something, if something's on TV, I love football. And that might be similar to a lot of guys out there. And I agree with Scotty that we're just good friends. If I'm calling Mac on a drive home, we're talking football. We're talking how we can improve the experience for our listeners. We respond to every tweet, Instagram, DM, whatever we get. So I think we care about this a lot. We care about your team individually, your fantasy team, and we want to win more than anything too. So we're giving our best advice that we possibly can, and we just want to do it for the love of football, love of fantasy.
Yeah, and like to Landon's point, we all have full-time jobs, so our interest is from a very passionate standpoint. It's not I'm paid, I'm putting food on the table in doing this, so I have an obligation to do this. It comes out of passion and interest, and we're right in the trenches with you guys, going through some of these decisions, and trying to navigate some of the muddy waters that is fantasy football sometimes. But we're kind of right there with you. And we're just four regular guys that just love fantasy football, hopefully as much as you guys do, to be talking about it, year round. So I think with the four of us, I would say with Scott, like I would bet on myself that, we're an entertaining bunch to listen to, but I also think that we're a very passionate bunch that just really want to build a community and help people out when they play fantasy football.
And if I were to put my 2 cents in here, one thing that we've been doing a little more recently that I really love is writing more, and like the idea of pumping out articles to our Patreon site. I think that is just like, to me, it's got me all giddy. I'm a former language student. I love being able to write again. And the fact that is part of our motif is just, it's fun. It's fun to put out things in multiple media. And one of the thing, like not just the writing piece, but the complement to that, Mac, I think is your artwork. I think like just it's all come together to form this thing that is a lot more than just talking into a microphone once a week,
I get it, man. Totally. Yeah, we've got a good little crew here. Hopefully bigger and brighter things are on the horizon for all of us. One thing that I'm really excited for this year that we haven't done in the past is our listener league. And just as a friendly reminder, we are taking 2 more spots. Basically, I guess by next week's podcast, we will have our 11th contestant or player in the listener league. We are grabbing that person from Instagram. So be active, shoot us a DM, tell us why you deserve to be in the league. Try to engage with us on our stories and with the 4 of us on Instagram. So we're going to pick somebody there. And then by about August 15th, we're going to pick the last person coming off a podcast review. So go ahead, leave us some feedback, leave us a rating, review on Apple Podcasts, and leave your social media handle in that post, and we'll be sure to pick someone from there. So we've got 10 guys, really want to make it competitive, lots of fun. That's pretty much what I want to say about that. Our Instagram and Twitter handles really quick, SMS_fantasy. If you want to get a hold of Landon, Mark, Scott, or myself, our individual handles will be in the episode description below. Okay, fellas, we are going to get divisional here, talking about the AFC North. That's right, New England Patriots, Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, and New York Jets. Do you guys want to start at the top or the bottom here?
When we do these team reviews, could we just like skip all the bad ones, Mac, or do we have to do every team?
Well, in this particular division, we'd only be talking about the New England Patriots. And I, for one, will not spend any more than 10 minutes of my life talking about the New England Patriots because I'm pretty sick of them, to be honest, at this point. So I'm good to move on.
Just taking a look at this division here, among the, let's say, 40 guys in the discussion, how many of them actually have ADPs?
Yeah, small handful.
And I see a lot of NA.
Yeah.
Not applicable. Listen, let's just start at the bottom and work our way up to the top. Hopefully we only have like 4 or 5 minutes left and we can talk about the Patriots then. But we're going to go to the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills didn't finish last in this division last year, but they probably will be last in this division this year. Or hopefully the Miami Dolphins, if they're playing, goes successfully. But I think the Bills will probably be at the bottom of this division this year. Basically 6-10 in 2018, and they've got a totally new, revamped roster. If compared to last season, they had a lot of free agent signings in John Brown from the Ravens. They had Cole Beasley from the Dallas Cowboys. Tyler Kroft, the Tomb Raider himself from the Bengals. And then they've gone out and got TJ Yeldon from the Jags and Frank Gore. Yes, Frank Gore, the 36-year-old Iron Man himself, is joining this running back core. So yeah, you've got LaShawn McCoy, TJ Yeldon, Frank Gore alongside Josh Allen. And then you've got rookie running back Devin Singletary. So my first question about this team is that we know that the Bills want to run the ball. Right? They were 9th in rushing last season, 31st in passing. The focus has to be on the ground here, but my question is, will they be able to do it? We saw Josh Allen be very, very productive on the ground last year, but that's not his role. His role is to distribute the ball through the air. So if they can have a run game, who's the primary back going to be? For me, I'm thinking Devin Singletary. I don't think it'll be right out of the gate. I think it's probably going to take 7, 8, 9 weeks for him to establish a role. But I do think he will be the lead back come year's end. How do you guys see this running back carousel or running back by committee shaking out?
So, Mackie, I mean, it's probably going to be LaShawn McCoy out of the gate. But for me, he's an undraftable player. I do not want LaShawn McCoy on any of my fantasy teams. I don't care what the value. Do you agree with me on that? Or would you take him to get a good couple, 2-3 weeks out of him to start the season?
Yeah, I mean, at the 907, you're not investing a whole lot of draft capital in LaShawn McCoy. I mean, how many starting running backs can you get outside of the 9th round?
Yeah, not many.
One that comes to mind would be Adrian Peterson. Another one would be Peyton Barber at this point. It's funny, Ronald Jones is actually 3 rounds ahead of Peyton Barber at the 806 compared to the 1011. So, outside of those two guys, you're not getting too many starters. The only thing that I have with LaShawn McCoy is that he might be one of the backs. This is a kind of a bold take. He might be one of the only backs in the league. If there's a catastrophic injury or hole or team need for running back, I think the Buffalo Bills will get some sort of sizable offer where they'll be able to part ways with LaShawn McCoy and get some value in return. That'd be interesting. Genuinely see that happening at some point throughout the season. But I don't personally want any part of LaShawn McCoy. You kind of saw that decline in production last year. And once running backs get over that sort of 30, 31-year-old hump, their production just falls off a cliff. And yes, Frank Gore is an outlier. He's an anomaly to this sort of statistic, this thought. But I think Frank Gore is just nothing more than an insurance policy. I do think with the capital they spent in Devin Singletary at the draft to get him, he's going to be wildly productive in the latter part of the season. So that's kind of the way that I see this backfield shaking out. I don't want any piece of LaShawn McCoy or TJ Yeldon at all.
Yeah, I think when you look at guys like Frank Gore and LaShawn McCoy, there's probably a lot of expectation for them to be just receiving the ball as per their offensive coordinator's judgment. And I think, like, right now, there's probably a lot of competition in their training camp, thinking about these old guys needing to maintain that footprint that they've made over the years, and Frank Gore just always being there, wanting the ball. Like, you gotta think these guys are trying to grasp on at their post 30-year run, still potential starting running back in the NFL role, but I think, like you said, between week 7, 8, or 9, Devin Singletary is going to push his way up to be the guy to get that ball, because, it's just McCoy has been so hurt over the years, and a large part of that is just the fact that the Bills cannot put it together in an offensive line that can keep their back from getting hit before the line of scrimmage. Like, it's just the reality in Buffalo is that offensive line cannot hold guys off for enough time for these backs to find a hole. But I think Devin Singletary is the type of guy, like, we were painting him as maybe a younger LaShawn McCoy earlier in a few episodes ago. And personally, I think if he can show a splash in the first 5 or 6 weeks, then I think he will get that starting role halfway through the season.
Now,
So the only hesitation I have for Singletary and why I didn't take him in our rookie draft was his athletic measurables. He's not a very fast guy. He's not a very agile guy. And I think we should move on from the running backs a little bit. But, like, even if you have the starting running back for the Buffalo Bills, say it was only Devin Singletary on his own, how valuable is that guy? That's the question we have to ask. Is he worth a 7th round pick? Where would he go before? Like, he's not going to be an ultra valuable guy just because of that O-line. Dynasty, we're talking different, but redraft, like, is it worth even taking a flyer on Singletary? Because it's a bad team. It's a bad O-line.
I'll 100% take a value, or I'll take a flyer on him at the 1109. I'll definitely do that.
Fair.
I do believe in him. I've been high on him all off season, and I think this is the perfect scenario for him to find himself in, behind 2 aging backs and no real threat outside with the satellite backs in Yeldon to come in and steal that role. So, departing from the running backs, John Brown, Zay Jones, Robert Foster, Cole Beasley. Now, the Bills went out and spent some money on John Brown, Cole Beasley, Tyler Kroft, tight end as well this offseason. To me, I have some questions. Is there any value in this wide receiving core or, pass catching group? I'll include Tyler Kroft in that because he has been fantasy relevant at times in Cincinnati. But, I think biggest question marks here is between Robert Foster and Zay Jones. Now, many will say that Robert Foster will come in and take over Zay Jones's role, but I don't see that happening. Zay Jones led the team last year in snaps and was the most productive out of all of the receivers. You bring in John Brown, who's a field stretcher. You bring in Cole Beasley, who's a possession guy. I don't think, this is a probably unpopular take, I don't think Robert Foster makes this starting top 3. I think it's going to be John Brown, Zay Jones, Cole Beasley. I think Robert Foster is going to be sort of up and down, in and out kind of player. But is there any value to be had in this wide receiver core? Let's make it quick here.
So here's a quick stat for you, Mac. Josh Allen completed just 29.5% of passes while under pressure last year, thanks to next-gen stats. That is by far the worst in the league among qualified quarterbacks. The league average is 50.4%. So he is severely under that mark. And we discussed the O-line, and I don't know if it's going to get much better. It's going to be tough. Now, I think they put some pieces around him in the receiving core to help that completion percentage a little bit. However, it doesn't bode well for those wide receivers. They can't catch uncatchable balls, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Right. No, it's a good stat. I mean, I personally don't see any value in this wide receiving core. I think it's going to be very inconsistent if you get any production at all. We alluded to the offensive line and the struggles there. They did draft a couple pieces early. Cody Ford was one of them. But Josh Allen, to me, he's an inaccurate quarterback. He has flashed in fantasy a couple times due to his legs, not his arm. He does have a strong arm, but he needs some protection. So really the only person in this offense that I'm willing to put my money on is Devin Singletary. And I think that's really no different from years past when we're talking, it was LaShawn McCoy 2-3 years ago when they had Tyrod Taylor and company. So I'm going to depart from the Bills. I don't see a lot of fantasy value this year. For me, it's just in Devin Singletary. I wouldn't even consider streaming Josh Allen until I see an improvement in that offensive line. Let's move on to the New York Jets, the absolute worst in the division last year at 4-12. Scott, you're going to be locking this one down for us. So go ahead, give us your thoughts on the New York Jets. I guess the first thing here is the outlook for the Jets could be a little bit different this year with Adam Gase coming in. Is this a good or bad thing?
Yeah, I think Adam Gase coming in is an absolutely good thing, especially for Sam Darnold. I mean, when you look at Adam Gase's career trajectory, he is a career offensive coordinator, wide receiver coach, quarterback coach. Like, he's definitely an offensive guy. And he has made really a name for himself in his work with quarterbacks. So with New York rightfully deciding with all that draft capital they put into Sam Darnold to make him the cornerstone franchise of the team, I think that he is the right guy to mold this great raw talent they have in Sam Darnold and turn him into the franchise quarterback that they all hope that he will be.
So I'm gonna piggyback that real quick. A lot of people will say I personally don't like Adam Gase as a head coach. I think that he can be vengeful at times. If a player has wronged him, he's had a tendency to keep them in the doghouse. We saw that with Devontae Parker in years past. But one thing that he is good at is getting the best out of his players if he chooses to use them. I mean, look what he did with Ryan Tannehill, for example. So to me, he's the perfect guy for Sam Darnold to, squeeze all of that goodness out of him and help him take that leap forward. If he chooses to, extend that olive branch to him, so to speak. But this is a huge growing opportunity for Sam Darnold with the right system.
With that being said, I think the Jets are going to be, at least at worst, a team to watch. An interesting team to watch in this upcoming season. I actually have them improving from 4-12 to 8-8. And that is with pretty much everything going right. But they have a lot of interesting pieces this year. When we look at the fantasy implications of this roster,
that's what we're here for.
Obviously, everything will probably start and end with their big off-season acquisition of Le'Veon Bell. He's, I don't know if he's going to be the same player that he was in Pittsburgh. I really don't think it's going to be the same type of offense of setup there where you've got just a Hall of Fame quarterback and always a great wide receiver tandem pretty much his entire time there. Now he's coming into an offense that's got a sophomore quarterback and a wide receiver core that is really quite a toss-up. So it's a very different situation for Le'Veon and the Jets. But I do think it's going to be a really interesting season for them, and I think that they will improve and produce at least a few fantasy-relevant players.
Scotty, quick, does it concern you that Gase didn't want to sign Le'Veon Bell in the first place?
I think that
and thought they overpaid for him?
Sam Darnold. It is all about. No, it doesn't really concern me. Really investing in Le'Veon signed to a very long, quite guaranteed contract as far as the NFL contracts go. And I think even if Gates didn't exactly think that was the best way to spend the money, he is there now, and he will be a big part of the success or failure of that team. And really, it will be a big part of whether he is successful as a head coach there.
Right. And finally, sorry, his ADP is at 109. Would you take Lev there? And do you think he's a value there? Or would you wait till the early second, or would you jump in maybe early first?
The 109's feeling a little high for Le'Veon this year. I don't know if I jump in at 109 on him. He's in a really different situation now. He's got a young quarterback. unproven wide receiver core, and his O-line is, it's certainly worse than it was in Pittsburgh. And without all the great parts of the offense that he had, I do think he's going to do well this year, but I think at 109, you're probably hitting the ceiling for getting that return.
Real quick though, my biggest concern with Le'Veon Bell is going to be that he's now put himself in a system that is less effective than what he had in Pittsburgh. And I actually don't think he's going to get the workload that he did in Pittsburgh. So if you lessen his workload and you make him less efficient, he's got to regress. And for me to invest in a player at the 109, and I'm hoping that he's going to be, former shades of himself, I put him in a worse O-line with a smaller workload. How is he going to, warrant that 109 pick? It just doesn't make sense. So I'm totally fine with saying to Le'Veon Bell, prove me wrong this year, but I don't think I'm going to have any shares of Le'Veon Bell in 2019.
Now, if I may speak on the Jets situation with a new head coach coming in and seeing that there's Le'Veon Bell on this offense, I think in any situation where there's a new head coach coming in and you've got a young quarterback and there's just lots of ends trying to meet in the same place, I think the catalyst for everything to work on this offense is going to be through Le'Veon Bell. Just with the, like I said, new people coming together, I think what Adam Gase is going to see is a backbone in Le'Veon Bell. So that's why I think he is going to get the majority of the feeds on this offense. He's obviously the best player on the team, and that's what I think he's going to get so many feeds on the ground and through the air. That's going to be what allows this team to win games.
Okay.
I see that narrative too, Marky.
Yeah. Let's pivot to the wide receiving core. I'm curious about Robby Anderson. So give us what you think the outlook for him is. And, for me personally, I think he is a very talented player, probably one of the best in the league going deep. But I find him really tough to invest in at the 607.
Oh, remember the good old days early in this offseason when he was a 10th, 11th round pick?
That was a dream.
Oh, those were good days.
Best ball drafts, please give me that. But 607, he's climbed like crazy.
Yeah, the wide receivers for the Jets are an interesting group this year. Robby Anderson obviously would be the WR1 in this group, but his ADP of 6.07 is getting a little high for this offense. I personally am gravitating a little bit more towards, say the Jamison Crowder type wide receiver who is currently going undrafted. And, if you believe the coach talk that's going on, I put out an article about this last week, but
shameless plug.
If you believe the coach speak that's going on, they're saying he's the deep threat that their offense was missing last season. So not to say that I think you'll have a more productive season than Robby Anderson, but if I was going to take a flyer on any of the wide receivers in this offense, I'd be more interested in grabbing him in perhaps the last round of the draft than burning a 6th round pick on Robby Anderson, even though he did look great last season. I just don't know if he looked 6th round.
Well, Crowder's the possession guy, slot guy, PPR kind of guy. I don't like him, but I see your point, I guess, Scotty.
I mean, to me, Robby Anderson is very boom or bust. I almost see him like a more talented Tyler Lockett. But with Tyler Lockett, if he didn't score at a crazy, rate, if he didn't get into the end zone as many times as he did, we wouldn't be talking about him at the spot that he is in 2019. He had a great finish. So Robby Anderson is much of the same. If the touchdowns don't follow Robby Anderson's production, you're probably not going to get any value back at the 607. So I think he's very touchdown dependent. I think the yards will be there. I think the big playability will be there, but will it lead to the end zone? That's the biggest question for me in Robby Anderson. Yeah. Real quick before we depart, Chris Herndon is receiving a 4-game suspension. Is that right, Scott?
Yep, he is going to be out for 4 weeks, which essentially, makes him interesting in dynasty drafts for sure. But in redrafts, it's pretty much a no-go on that part. So, set your Apple calendars or your G calendars or whatever for week 3 of the waiver wire, because outside of that, you don't want to be drafting him, but he could make for an interesting waiver wire pickup in redraft leagues a few weeks into the season.
Correct. Undraftable, though, out of the gate.
Okay, Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, next. When you said start off with the worst team, Mac, I almost had to look in the mirror and be like, oh, wait, am I up? Or who's going?
The worst in my heart. The one that gives me a feeling of death and hell. That's Buffalo.
Doesn't it? Right, exactly. So the Dolphins, though.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Interesting team. I think they have a really good opportunity to flop and get Tua or Trevor Lawrence next year if Trevor comes out. But they
so
also
you're just
have
coming out right away and saying that they are tanking. It's over.
They might tank.
Team.
They might tank. There's a possibility. However, they traded for Josh Rosen, which I think was a great call for that team. And they have Ryan Fitzmagic. And Ryan put up some excellent numbers. Had one of the best yards per attempt in the NFL last year, was 4th in yards per game, and yards per pass completion is 14.4. Really, really good, which bodes well for the wide receivers. We have Devontae Parker, who's a career 50% catch rate guy. If he doesn't break out this year, he's basically out of the league. On the other hand, we have Albert Wilson, who's kind of this really good slot guy who has a really excellent 70% catch percentage. So he's not getting drafted, but he could be a sneaky guy if Fitzmagic stays as the starting quarterback. Kenny Stills, I think he's a good high flyer. He's actually going as one of the late round picks, and I think that is solely to do with Fitzpatrick. The problem is that Rosen will get a chance to play. He has to. They have to at least see what they have in Rosen to decide whether they take a chance at one of these generational quarterbacks that are coming through the college ranks right now. So the dream won't last that long, and they actually have a pretty tough first schedule. So week 5 they play Washington, and that is the first time I'm ever going to play a Miami Dolphin, if I could help it. With that said, Kenyon Drake's not too bad. I think he has a good opportunity in that backfield. He's going at a 5.02, which has climbed a little bit. I think fantasy analysts have hyped him up a little bit. Me personally, I'm a Kalen Ballage guy. He's got a really good yards per carry at about 5.4, but Drake is pretty good in his own right. If he didn't probably get in Gase's doghouse, he would have had a better opportunity. So
let's pause real quick and go to.
Sorry, I was a little quick, a little rambly there, Mackie.
Yeah, let's go to the training camp battle right now between Rosen and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Is there any update as to who's winning that job right now?
I think Fitzpatrick is going to win this job out of the gate. I think Rosen is going to need a little bit more time, but I assume my best guess is week 6 or 7, Rosen comes in and gets the starting job.
So let's assume that Ryan Fitzpatrick has the starting job to open week 1. Do you think there's any value in him as a streamer this season?
I would stream Fitzpatrick. I would definitely stream him in week 5 against the Redskins, and maybe against, I think they play the Patriots week 2, which might be an interesting option. So he's a streamer. He's a good maybe DraftKings guy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick, with the way he plays football, will make somebody on this team outside of the running back core relevant. The biggest question is, with 3 wide receivers who are primed to get a lot of targets with, I think, either Fitzpatrick or Rosen, which one do you plant your flag on? Is it going to be Devontae Parker at the 3.11, Kenny Stills at the 14.06, or Albert Wilson, who's going undrafted? Who's the guy that emerges from this wide receiving core? Mark, let me flip it over to you.
I honestly think it's going to be Albert Wilson, just because if he ends up being like the undrafted one, I think he is a player that really works really hard, and he has made electric plays in the past. Not to mention, he has an excellent catch percentage as well. So obviously, Fitzpatrick is going to find the guys that are catching it most, just like he did last year with all those wins at the early games in Tampa Bay with Deshaun Jackson. Like, he is going to find the player that is most like him, and I think Albert Wilson is the one.
With Chad O'Shea being the offensive coordinator coming from New England, along with the new coach,
Brian Flores, also from New England.
Flores, which is interesting why they would leave New England and go to Miami. I guess the weather's nicer. But I think that gives Rosen an opportunity to come in and be a productive franchise quarterback. Whether he's going to be fantasy relevant, a whole other story. But as a starter for an NFL franchise, I think he might be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I so really want to believe in Devontae Parker just one more season, but it's like, fool me once, fool me twice, but fool me 3 times.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Shame on everyone.
Hey, man, that's got to be all on me. Shame on the world. But I do think the guy that's probably going to benefit the most when you talk about that excellent catch percentage, Albert Wilson going undrafted right now is definitely worth if you're drafting early, spend your 14th or 15th pick. Don't even pick up that kicker in defense. Go ahead and grab yourself a share of Albert Wilson. Unlike the Buffalo offense we talked about with how many receiving options they have, which one is it going to be? I might just try to grab any of them at this point and see who emerges in training camp. The reason why I want to go Albert Wilson, he costs you less, even though they don't cost you anything at all. But some of his metrics last year had a couple of the longest plays, had a couple 70-plus yard touchdowns. He was clocked as one of the fastest ball carriers at 21.7 miles per hour. That's a top 10 rate.
That's fast.
I think Albert Wilson has a lot of big playability, and I agree with Landon. I think, and Mark, I think Albert Wilson's going to be the guy.
And Mac, I tend to agree with you. And so the difference between getting an Albert Wilson and Kalen Ballage in late rounds is that you can, if Albert Wilson comes out and plays well, you have a good possible wide receiver 3 streamer on your team. But if Kalen Ballage comes out and just doesn't get the opportunity, you're probably just going to drop him. And then he could get that opportunity later on in the season. I talked to you guys about this off camera, and at least you have a chance to get a flyer and a wide receiver, and you can pick up Ballage when Drake goes down and fight the waiver wires, that kind of thing. Like wide receivers, at least if they get the targets and get the opportunity, you might have a really good steal on your hands rather than wait and hope on a backup running back to get that opportunity.
Love it. Asking for a friend real quick, is there any value in Mike Gesicki? Can he be fantasy relevant?
Yes. The athletic freak, Mike Gesicki himself. I think there's a possibility. I think there's a chance. We don't have him highly ranked. He's not getting drafted, but deep league, deep benches, tight end premium leagues, Gesicki is a flyer at best. It's tough. He has the chance, Mac. Penn State pushes out good athletes.
Freaks.
Yeah, I think he can. I think he can do it. He just needs to show it. He didn't do anything last year, so it's hard to project something out of nothing.
Look how far young Rick hits the ball.
Yeah,
Penn State alum. No, I think the way we close out this team is that Kenyon Drake is, I think, a stud at the 502. He'll be a really solid, running back 3, I think, for your team. I think if you start, a mix of 2 running back, 2 wide receivers, he'd be an excellent pickup at the beginning of the 5th. Someone's got to score for this team. It's not going to be Kalen Ballage, in my humble opinion. I think it'll be Kenyon.
He's got
Drake.
talent. He's got a lot of talent.
He does. It's just opportunity is king over talent. I think Kenyon Drake has all of that.
True.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, you are in the spotlight, my friend. Take us very quickly through the New England Patriots. We've talked about them enough. We've heard all of the, after winning another championship, we've heard enough about the New England Patriots for another year. But is this going to be another, successful year for the Patriots, or is time ticking on this squad?
No, I hate them. I don't want to talk about them. I hate them.
Okay, good. And thanks for tuning in.
Okay, well, let me just tell you. When I typed in Tom Brady fantasy into Google, let me tell you, there's a lot of weirdos out there.
No.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
The NFL today, we have him ranked as QB 16 with his ADP at about 1103, which you know what you're going to get when you draft Tom Brady. He is going to manage. He's got the easiest division in the NFL. I think you can easily bank him at about a 30 to 35 touchdown season. Probably pretty close, if not cracking the 4,000 yard mark. That's a safe bet on Tom Brady, just given the fact that he has always been able to manage with whatever personnel he's given, especially down the stretch.
You want to talk about easy season? You want to talk about easy schedule? How many games do you think it's going to take the New England Patriots to play a team who made the playoffs last year?
6 weeks. 7.
Anybody else? 9 weeks. So they literally just get to sort of, tinker, go through the trials and tribulations of a new season without Gronk in the lineup. Yes, he is retired, despite what your, Yahoo trending waiver claims might say. Yeah, it's crazy. The schedule for them is it's an absolute joke, and so is this division.
Yeah, and so
right.
If you look at Bill Belichick's Patriots, the fact that they win Super Bowls, that is just like a keyhole view into what they're doing through the entire season, because it's basically coasting the entire time, and they're like
the Brooks Koepka of football.
Exactly. They nonchalantly go through these seasons, and then once they
show up when it counts,
they win those Super Bowl games, it's like you don't see them going that crazy in the locker room. You see Tom Brady looking right at the camera and just saying like, "What's up now?" Yeah, I did it. You knew I was going to do it. So that's what I'm saying is Tom Brady is probably a good fit. I think even he'll find himself late in the draft. You can't lose having a guy like him on your team, but he is actually going into his first year without a contract extension, but they don't really talk about that sort of stuff in the media with the Patriots.
So would you guys draft Tom Brady at his current ADP of 1103?
No, I wouldn't. I think there's too many quarterbacks around that area that do better work on the ground as well. So I'd be more tempted to grab someone like a Prescott or a Trubisky, who's going to do more than just find the, get those 3 touchdown games through the air. And
So who's going to be in this wide receiver core without Gronk on the field? Who's going to be the biggest beneficiary between Edelman, Harry, Demaryius Thomas, Philip Dorsett, or if Josh Gordon can even come back? Who's going to be the biggest beneficiary with Gronk gone?
Well, I look a lot into the reliability, and right now Edelman is the one who is probably going to be most reliable. Like that guy's going to catch probably 10 to 12 passes a game. A certain 100 catch season type of guy. But yeah, as far as reliability, like the other pieces around him just don't have that Gronk quality. They don't have even that Josh Gordon quality for a little bit of magic, like deep in the end zone. Landon, do you want to speak on this at all?
So, fun fact for the New England Patriots. Last year, they were 5th in yards per game, and they have been in the top 6 since 2015. They have not disappointed in yards per game and leads the NFL. Just a fun little stat. But we missed, I guess, on that news that Julian Edelman is starting on the PUP and should be ready. But he had a brace on his thumb. I think he had something going on with his thumb. So I guess that's another downgrade potentially for Tom, but a positive for rookie N'Keal Harry.
Yeah, Edelman's expected to be out 3 weeks. It was just a small
Sprain
small
or
little,
something?
with his thumb. He was seen wearing a splint at I guess it was like a kids camp. And so
Right.
the news on this is just 3 weeks. He'll be good to go and should be good for, preseason if he plays any, and if not, week
So
one.
I see
Right,
N'Keal
so-
Harry kind of almost filling the shoes of Josh Gordon's last year's stats, where they obviously could really use a player like Josh Gordon right now, because there's not a lot of middle ground between like the vets and the young bloods on the team. So my question is, will N'Keal be ready to fill that the deep threat type receiver role, maybe get 50 to 60 receptions this season? And I don't know. I think that the door is open for N'Keal to fill a huge role there, and it's just a matter of how healthy like Demaryius Thomas stays too, because I feel like N'Keal Harry and Demaryius Thomas will have big roles as guys who can jump up and catch the ball. So
for me, it really comes down to, do I think that Josh Gordon will come back? I mean, he's not suspended. He's on the commissioner's list, so he could return. It's just a matter of is his personal agenda aligned with his professional? And, that's just something that is unforeseen at this point. Do I think Demaryius Thomas comes back and is healthy? I don't. I really don't. I think with N'Keal Harry being drafted where he was back of the first round, that just shows how serious the Patriots are in having another elite pass catcher on their team. Philip Dorsett has been with the team a long time, and I think that he could potentially see some field time, but to be relevant for fantasy is probably not in the cards for him.
No, he's more that deep threat guy. He's a speedster, I think.
Yeah.
Nikhil's I gotta find his way. I think Nikhil's that can do everything, kind of wide receiver. He was my favorite coming out of college, but he's not really a deep threat either. He's not the fastest guy, but he's a do it all kind of.
Yeah, I think N'Keal Harry is the player who's most likely to kind of pick up what the Patriots are missing with Gronk's absence. He's a big body wide receiver. He could be that big man over the middle, and they're going to be looking for somebody because Edelman is going to have a great year, but he's not that big body, and Demaryius Thomas is pretty broken. I'll be amazed if he suits up more than half the season. So N'Keal Harry could be in for a big year.
Oh, he's only 6'2", 228. He's not huge, but yeah.
228 is thick.
Extra thick!
Mark, walk us through this running back by committee. Sony Michel, James White, Damian Harris, a rookie, and Rex Burkhead. Who's the most stable in your opinion, and who can win a job?
Well, Michelle, even having missed 3 games last year, was just shy of 1,000 yards. I think he's the guy to have right now, just especially in Dynasty. He is that youth figure. He is someone who showed himself as very, very capable. But not only that, capable in clutch moments. He was the superstar of the playoffs for them, including the one who scored the game-winning Super Bowl touchdown. However, if you look at PPR formats, James White is the guy to have. He had 87 receptions last year, 12 combined touchdowns. He quietly dominated for the first half of last season. I think Burkhead is a piece that you don't really have to worry about. He is not going drafted right now. And then Damian Harris. We have a guy who he was sharing carries with Jacobs at Alabama. I think he actually ended up with better numbers than Jacobs, but unfortunately he's not walking into the same opportunity as him. So another guy who you can monitor, and at the 10:07 spot, I think that's honestly a little bit steep. But to hang on to him in a dynasty league, that eventually the Patriots are going to use their running backs and feed them for chapters of their season. You just never know who it's going to be or when. So if I'm going to invest stock in anyone right now, it's Sony Michel.
See, and I'm more willing to put my money into James White. I just think when you look back to last season, when Michel struggled with his health and Rex Burkhead was in and out of the lineup, James White was the go-to guy, the most reliable piece for Brady, a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield, who can run between the tackles. I think White is the go-to piece. Now they're both being drafted, him and Michel, in the 5th round. The only thing that bugs me about Sony Michel right now, I love his talent. I think he's a great running back. He did have a scope done on his knee, and it's not a big thing to be worried about. It's a very normal procedure among running backs, happens all the time. But I just think a guy so young in his career having issues with his knees already, that could lead to re-injury. So I think at the 507, I'd be more willing to put my money on James White than onto Sony Michel. Do I think that Damian Harris can win the job? Maybe. It's a question, but I'm with Mark. I think you do want a piece of this New England backfield because they do use their running backs in very strategic and effective ways. So yeah, I want a piece of it.
My money's on Damian Harris this year because I think he can do it all. He can.
Oh, snap!
He can catch and run hard through the tackles, and Sony Michel is lacking that catching ability. I know they used a first round on him last year, but I think Harris could be a good mix between White and Michel.
Real quick, Mark, close it out. Is Matt Lacoste the next Rob Gronkowski?
No. No, he's not.
No.
Just, I mean, how do you ever replace that guy? Honestly, the guys who are going to make the big plays on this offense this year are Julian Edelman, James White, Sony Michel, and that's it. N'Keal Harry.
Yeah. The elite tight end spot is a thing of the past for the New England Patriots, and so is this episode. Thing of the past, boys. Another one down, another division previewed. Hope you guys enjoyed some of the wonderful work that some of these guys did for you this week. We want to thank you for stopping by. And as always, if you are enjoying the podcast, go ahead and leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. Be sure, if you do want to be a part of the Listener League, to put your social media handles in the post, and we will be picking someone as the last member of our Listener League by August 15th. So thanks for kicking it with us. And until next week, we will see you later.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SMS_fantasy. Support this independent podcast at patreon.com/Saturday Morning Snap.